resort to a surrogate mother, a practical, reliable, altruistic and safe solution for couples who cannot have children. This is how agencies present their services to their future clients.
Extraordinary Conceptions is an international agency that matches egg donors and surrogates to couples or individuals who need help building their families. We are proud of what we do and are committed to helping would-be parents achieve their dream of parenthood.
Their advertising does everything to reassure the parents-to-be. Thanks to them, it is now possible to have the family you have been longing for. These businesses say they are just altruistic intermediaries. Altruistic, but above all, extremely lucrative. In fact, these agencies represent a worldwide industry that generates a multi-billion annual turnovers. Gestational surrogacy is a contract covering the conception and gestation through to the abandon and handing over of a child to one or several parties to the contract. The surrogate mother can either donate her own oocyte or be implanted with two gametes from eternal sources that have been fertilized in vitro. Gestational surrogacy is not well seen in the public opinion, particularly in France, where the Comité Consultatif National d'Éthique, CCNE, once again firmly condemned it in June 2017. Despite this, both single people and couples continue to resort to this practice illegally. Faced with this reality, an international abolition of gestational surrogacy is being advanced as the best means to put an end to it. However, there are those who would rather legislate, in their own words, to avoid any abuse. Can legislation render acceptable a practice that uses women as incubators and makes a child the object of a commercial transaction? To find the answer to this question, the Manif pour tous investigated from Paris to Southeast Asia, particularly in Thailand, where a legal framework was set up in 2015 to reduce the number of gestational surrogacies. The Manif pour tous met not only with high officials, but also filmed with a concealed camera people responsible for the agencies offering surrogacy services. Firstly, we needed to understand how the country had gone from a total absence of control to a restrictive legislation. To do this, we met with those who had been instrumental in preparing the law. Dr. Proksunananda, gynecologist and obstetrician at the Chulalongkorn Hospital, and who is a renowned specialist in the technique of in vitro procreation. Symphasit Kumprafan, lawyer and defender of children's rights, and Junge Thomas, responsible for the NGO Alliance Anti-Traffic, who played a major role in exposing the traffic linked to surrogacy in Thailand. They explained to us what had caused this shift in Thai public opinion that brought the development of this practice to a brutal halt.
Maybe we are lucky because we have those three high-profile cases.
Yes, so
at the same time. So people see that yes, this is the problem, so we need to do something. So our situation is
right. Finally, it was good.
Right. Because we can use these three cases as an example that if we do not do something, this is an example that you will see, and it's the real case. We have the real person.
In August 2014, the Gami affair provoked a media earthquake when the entire world was scandalized when an Australian couple refused a newborn child and left it with a surrogate mother because the child was suffering from Down syndrome but took his twin sister who was in perfect health. Some days later, another shocking affair. Thailand and the world discovered the existence of a baby factory in the heart of Bangkok. The son of a Japanese millionaire had himself inseminated around 15 Thai women who were being held prisoner in an apartment. Both these scandals awakened public opinion not only in Thailand but also internationally, and Thailand realized how serious the situation had become. One last scandal shook the country. Alliance Anti-Traffic, presided by Junge Thomas, recognized for their work on exploitation and traffic on human beings, was requested by the authorities in this case.
บุกช่วยหญิงชาวเวียดนามถูกหลอกมารับจ้างตั้งครรภ์ให้กับลูกค้าไต้หวันในประเทศไทย สวัสดีครับต้อนรับเข้าสู่เวลาข่าวของท่านกับข่าว3มิติ23กุมภาพันธ์นะครับ คืนนี้เราเริ่มด้วยปัญหาที่ผู้ชมหลายท่านอาจจะคาดไม่ถึงว่ามีอยู่จริงนะครับ หญิงสาวกลุ่มหนึ่งจากประเทศเวียดนามเดินทางเข้ามาสู่ประเทศไทยด้วยคำชักชวนเบื้องต้นว่ามีงานที่ดีรายได้ดีแต่ว่าเมื่อเดินทางมาถึงประเทศไทยพวกเธอถูกบังคับให้เซ็นสัญญาว่าต้องทำหน้าที่ตั้งครรภ์เพื่อกำเนิดบุตรให้กับผู้ว่าจ้างพวกเธอถูกนำไปอยู่รวมกันมีกฎระเบียบบังคับให้รักษาครรภ์ให้ดีที่สุดบางคนถูกข่มขืนเพื่อให้ตั้งครรภ์จากเจ้าของธุรกิจรับจ้างตั้งครรภ์ล่าสุดมีหญิงสาวที่ถูกกระทำจากบุคคลกลุ่มนี้ร้องเรียนผ่านสถานทูตเวียดนามประจำประเทศไทย
One of the women being held in the apartment was able to reach the Vietnamese embassy in Bangkok, who immediately contacted the authorities. This is how Alliance Anti-Traffic became involved in the affair. They discovered that the traffic was being organized from an internet site located in California, but owned by Thais already convicted of for traffic of surrogate mothers and children. The agents put couples in contact with Vietnamese women who were victims of human trafficking between Vietnam, Cambodia and Thailand. Once in Bangkok, they were held in an apartment where Alliance Anti-Traffic and the authorities were able to liberate 13 young women. They then went to find 2 other young women who were already hospitalized for the deliveries. All of them were considered victims of human trafficking and were transferred to government centers for protection.
On s'est aperçu au cours des investigations qu'en fait 9 hôpitaux de Bangkok étaient impliqués dans ce trafic, oui. Que le trafic durait depuis au moins 3 ans. Donc les dossiers qu'on a retrouvés dans les hôpitaux prouvaient donc que le trafic durait au minimum 3 ans. Les femmes venaient d'un village, tout du même village au sud du Vietnam, étaient d'abord envoyées au Cambodge et ensuite étaient envoyées en Thaïlande, donc, où elles étaient reçues. Pour les clients donc, qui étaient en attente de leur bébé, la plupart venaient d'Asie. Il y en avait qui étaient chinois, taïwanais, hongkongais, de Hong Kong, et un couple qui vient des États-Unis.
D'accord. D'accord.
Les femmes étaient donc dans une maison qui apparaît d'ailleurs sur le site web. Donc, elles étaient dans de très bonnes conditions, avec piscine et elles étaient bien traitées. On montrait qu'elles étaient bien
ça fait
traitées.
partie du marketing, ça faisait partie du marketing de cette agence.
Voilà, exactement. Et rien ne se faisait dans les maisons. Les maisons, c'était uniquement pour faire garder les femmes, et donc tout se faisait dans les hôpitaux.
Et est-ce qu'elles avaient donc pas le droit du tout de sortir de cette maison?
Non,
de cette maison.
Elles ne pouvaient pas sortir. Et en plus de ça, elles n'avaient pas le droit de communiquer entre elles à l'intérieur des maisons. Et donc elles devaient attendre jusqu'à ce que donc un couple client utilise leur service, je ne sais pas comment dire. Et donc après, elle devait rester le temps jusqu'à l'accouchement. Et si l'accouchement se passait mal, elle devait se faire transférer un embryon jusqu'à ce qu'elles obtiennent un bébé qui est en bonne santé.
As a result of these 3 scandals, the Thai government decided to confront the question and to open a real reflection on the practice of surrogacy. It was out of the question that Thailand and the uteruses of Thai women would become the international hub, to cite the minister Walop Tungkananurak. The parliament therefore decided to restrict the number of gestational surrogacies with a law.
The Thailand Parliament has passed the registration banning the commercial surrogacy, and since February 19, 2015. And this, we think that we're gonna try to close the loophole in the country public health law.
Only the couple.
Only the couple, married couple.
Yeah, and married couple.
In the family.
Yeah, and moreover, we limit only. I mean, the women who volunteer to have pregnancy instead of the egg donor, they need to be relatives of the husband or the wife, and in case that they have no any relative to volunteer to do this, they need to propose the woman who have been considered by the committee that they will allow this woman or not. We need to we need to protect the women who have pregnancy, volunteer to have pregnancy.
The law has had a remarkable effect in restricting the number of surrogate gestations on Thai territory. Officially, the number of surrogate gestations has dropped from around 4,000 to around 200 per year. This is a very significant improvement. However, the problem is not yet solved. It is necessary to go further in order to protect the dignity of all women and all the children. According to Dr. Pruksanananda and lawyer Shamfazit Kumprafant, the agencies stopped all their activities as soon as the law was voted, and it is now impossible to contact them.
The legislative include a ban on advertising and promotions, and shut down surrogate agents and unregistered clinic. So if you see the surrogate agency somewhere else that saying that they are doing business in Thailand, that is definitely illegal.
Since the vote of the law, have you heard about illegal surrogacy, and did it happen that there is a...
Before the law have been
after the law?
After, I have not heard about this.
Nevertheless, during our investigation, we had no difficulty in contacting several of them. To make contact, we created a false identity, Valérie, a young French woman in her 30s, married but unable to carry a pregnancy to term due to a congenital malformation of the uterus. Her oocytes are healthy. Both she and her husband wanted to resort to a surrogate gestation and were taking advantage of a trip to Thailand to meet the agencies. We exchanged a lot by email. All the agencies clearly admitted that they continued to practice surrogate gestations in Thailand despite the new legislation, which they barely referred to in our written correspondence or personal conversations. We decided to make an appointment with two agencies. The first one was New Genetics Global. We met Josh. When we brought up the question of the Thai legislation, he assured us that it was not a problem. Josh explained the procedure to us. Because Valérie could provide her own oocytes, she could benefit from the promotion "Bring Your Own Eggs." All she had to do was spend 3 weeks in Bangkok to retrieve her oocytes. Her husband would then give his sperm, and the gametes would then be fertilized in a specialized hospital. After 5 days, cells would be taken from the embryo and sent to USA for genetic diagnosis. The clients then receive a report and then decide how many embryos they want to implant or the preferred sex, etc.
When everything is done, right? Okay, when everything is done, the embryo is stored here. Let's say we found have the surrogate, they're ready, right? Because it's a frozen embryo transfer. So we have the embryo, we will transfer to Laos, the clinic in Laos. We prepare the surrogate mother here, and once she's ready, then we fly her to Laos, transfer into the surrogate.
Because in the law, you cannot move the embryos outside of the country. So even though going to Cambodia is illegal.
One question remained: how would Valérie choose a surrogate mother? New Genetics Global had sent her the profile of 3 surrogate mothers, and she would choose one of them. It is obvious that the question was secondary for him. The only thing that counted for him was the fact they had all already had children, therefore they were able to carry a pregnancy to term and satisfy his clients. The only point he raised was it would be preferable not to choose a Thai woman because of the law. This was the only reference to the national legislation. However, if Valérie preferred a Thai woman, it would be possible.
Doesn't matter. Longer that she can give birth. Okay. It's fine. It doesn't matter.
Younger Thomas, from the NGO Alliance Anti-Traffic, explains that faced with the law, the agencies have simply found other solutions to offer the clients, and that far from disappearing, they have simply adapted to the new restrictions. This time, Valérie and her husband met Gaurav. He told them that he had to find rapid solutions as Cambodia is currently developing gestational surrogacy activity, which is not making his work easier. Fortunately, this businessman has all the solutions.
You also have an option of creating the embryos in India, not doing the embryo transfer, similar to how we would have done in Thailand, yeah. And and then shipping it to either Laos or to Kenya. Same price.
I have two last questions because
You can have 4 questions, don't worry about it. I'm here for...
I have one too.
okay, you have sent a lot of information to us and we read it, but it's hard to make an idea before to see you. But the surrogates are living in their house during their pregnancy, or do you give them an apartment?
Yeah. It's a combination of these things, because we cannot force anyone to stay in the same house for 9 months. They have families, they have babies. First 3 months, we strictly force them for the first trimester. They have to stay with us in our own house, in the surrogate house. After the first 3 months, they are flexible. We are flexible for them to go back and come back.
The surrogate mothers are closely supervised. Gaurav has an answer for everything, an online catalogue to select the surrogate mother, giving all the details, amongst which are the ethnic origins, guarantees. The solutions are simple. His business is reliable and can provide for all requirements, with a cutting-edge legal service and bank accounts on every continent. This is needed to avoid alerting the client's bank with a foreign transfer involving a large sum. During our meeting, there was never any reference to the child or the surrogate mother. Both were totally ignored in the conversation. It was only a question of discussing the terms of a commercial contract. Despite the law, it is very easy to meet the agencies and sign commercial contracts for surrogacy in Thailand. There has been a domino effect, with the traffic moving from one country to another. After Cambodia, which was in the process of legislating on surrogacy at the time of our investigation, Laos is becoming the new El Dorado, where the agencies can take advantage of the grey areas concerning the activity. After our investigation, a new scandal was exposed. A man, who was obviously one of the members of a network that we had met and informed one of the local NGOs about, was arrested on the border with Laos. He was transporting embryos in refrigerated containers together with Thai surrogate mothers. They were heading for the Laos clinic where New Genetics Global and the Bangkok Surrogacy Center carry out the inseminations on women from various countries. The police and the public were stupefied to discover that the law had not eliminated the problem and that the traffic was still ongoing in Thailand and throughout the region. Dissuasion by legislation alone will not be sufficient. Gestational surrogacy remains a global issue. In Thailand, as elsewhere in the world, public awareness is pushing legislators to impose limits. However, such laws are clearly unable to put an end to the exploitation of women and the traffic of children.
I think this is a global issue. It's not just one country issue. As you may say that in one country prohibit, the people just cross border or going to the other place that we can do. And that is the point. And I think because this is very new, sometimes to ask for people's support, because to make a law need a lot of support. It's not just the community, small communities. It has to be the countrywide.
It is urgent for the international community to intervene to protect these women and children victims of this traffic. A huge movement is now in motion to abolish surrogacy. Armed with the investigation results from the field trip, the Manif pour tous spoke at the UN. The international abolition of gestational surrogacy is the only solution that will eliminate this violence done to women and children.
Mesdames, Messieurs, la dignité de la femme n'a pas de frontières. Nous avons aujourd'hui rendez-vous avec l'histoire. Nous devons aux femmes et aux filles l'abolition universelle de la gestation pour autrui.